Now that question, that's not from some sci-fi script. That was a formal objective pulled right from a declassified CIA memo. It's the kind of question that, well, it haunted the Cold War. And it kicked off this decades-long secret search for the ultimate weapon, a key to unlock and maybe even control the human mind.
So, that's what we're digging into today. We're going to crack open these declassified documents and trace the shadow history of this hunt. We'll follow the trail from these, really brutal chemical experiments to something much quieter, much more pervasive. We're talking about the dream of a digital interrogator, an AI that promises it can pull out the truth no matter what.
All right, so where does a mission like that even start? Well, it all began with a huge problem, right in the middle of all that Cold War paranoia. The problem was this: you just can't trust a human to know if another human is lying. Think about it. In a world of spies, double agents, how do you know who to believe? So the search for some kind of reliable, scientific way to force the truth, that became a national security obsession.
And that obsession? It led to a pretty dark, what you might call analog age of interrogation. Just look at how fast this all escalated. It starts with the Navy's Project Chatter back in '47. Before you know it, by the early '50s, we've got Project Artichoke, and then comes the infamous one, MKUltra. This was a huge, deeply unethical program, and honestly, we'll probably never know the full, horrifying scope of it because so many of the records were deliberately destroyed in '73.
I mean, the methods they were using, it's just staggering. It was pure brute force. We're talking about psychoactive drugs like LSD, hypnosis, sensory deprivation chambers, electroshocks, even forcing addiction on people and then putting them through withdrawal. It was this desperate, almost chaotic search for a truth serum, some kind of chemical shortcut to just bypass a person's will. But the results? They were messy, they were unpredictable, and frankly, they were monstrous.
And all that unpredictability, all that messiness, it led to a major shift in their strategy. This whole world of human biochemistry, it was just failing them. It wasn't reliable. So they turned to something that seemed cleaner, more precise, more controllable. They turned to the cold, ordered world of electronics, of signals and circuits. They started looking for certainty inside the machine.
And you can see that pivot really clearly here. The goal wasn't just a truth serum anymore. No, it was bigger. It was full-on mind control. The method is shifted from a syringe to a signal. They weren't looking for some rambling, drug-induced confession. What they wanted was a precise, repeatable, electronic way to influence a human target.
And this path led them to some truly terrifying concepts, like something called RHIC, that stands for radiohypnotic intracerebral control. And look, this wasn't just some fringe theory. It was a documented, manualized concept. The ambition was essentially to create a Manchurian candidate, but electronically. To send commands to someone from a distance, and then just wipe their memory clean. No trace. So right here, this is the turning point. By 1960, you can see the focus is already shifting away from things like LSD. They're looking towards remote electronic influence. The future of interrogation, they decided, wasn't going to be chemical. It was going to be digital. The groundwork for a whole new kind of truth machine was being laid right then and there.
So, think about this. If you believe you can influence the mind with electronics, what's the next logical step? Can you also read it? And this is where we really enter the world of cold math. The attempt to take something as complex as human emotion, deception, all our physiology, and translate it all into machine-readable data.
And just to be super clear, we know all of this because of documents exactly like this one. This isn't speculation. The paper trail is real, even if it's fragmented. That approved for release stamp you see, that's like a portal, taking us right back to these secret projects. Projects that wanted to turn people into data points.
Okay, so here's the process they envisioned, and it's pretty much how it works today. Step 1, you gather raw data from the body, using sensors that don't even have to touch you. Step 2, algorithms go to work extracting key features, all those tiny involuntary tells that you can't control. Step 3, machine learning models compare all that data against a baseline. And finally, step 4, the system spits out a verdict on your credibility. Just like that, your humanity gets processed.
And this sensor array, this is the system's eyes and ears. Thermal imaging can see the heat flush of anxiety on your face. Voice stress analysis can hear microscopic tremors in your voice that you don't even know are there. RVSM, that's remote vital sign monitoring, it can track your heart rate, your breathing, all from a distance without ever touching you. Every little twitch, every word you choose, every biometric signature, it all just becomes another line of code in your profile.
And all of this brings this dark history hurtling right into our present. Because the dream of MKUltra, it never really died. It just changed its interface. It evolved. It got sleeker, more sanitized, and you could argue, a lot more dangerous. So, meet Avatar. And yes, that's its real name, the Automated Virtual Agent for Truth Assessment in Real Time. What is it? It's a kiosk. Seriously, a talking head on a screen asks you questions, and while you answer, a whole array of sensors is analyzing every flicker, every tremor to decide if you're telling the truth. This is the culmination of that 70-year-long search, all packaged up to look like a friendly automated kiosk.
But what happens when you hand interrogation over to a machine? Well, the risks are huge. You've got algorithmic bias, for starters, the threat of targeting whole individuals and communities, the obvious danger of using this for mass surveillance. And maybe the most chilling part, these machines can be programmed to use persuasive techniques, coercion, flattery, even shame, all without any of the restraint or empathy a human might have.
And this leads us to a massive legal and ethical black hole. Legal experts are asking this right now. If an AI interrogator uses techniques that are basically torture or coercion to get a result, who's liable? Who do you put on trial? The programmer? The agency that used it? The machine itself? Right now, the law just doesn't have an answer.
So after this long, dark search for a truth machine, here we are, in a really unsettling present, facing some fundamental questions. But these aren't just questions for us. They're questions for the machine itself.
First, the most basic one of all. Can a machine, just an algorithm, really detect a lie? I mean, that very human act of intention and deception, can code actually understand that? Or is it just a fancy anxiety detector? Does it confuse the nervousness of a totally innocent person with the deception of a guilty one? Is the machine punishing you for a physiological response instead of an actual crime? And where does this all lead? What's the end game here? When this technology gets cheap, easy to use, and it's suddenly everywhere, what happens when surveillance is not just possible, but it's automated and it's universal? What happens when we create what experts are already calling surveillance societies?
Which brings us to one last, really haunting question. In a system that's designed to quantify every single part of you, to make a judgment, what's the acceptable margin of error? What exactly is the error rate of a soul?
You know, that's a question the machine can't answer. But as this technology gets faster and faster, it's a question we're all going to be forced to confront. Because, as these documents make terrifyingly clear, the search for a perfect, silicon truth, it continues.